Mermaid and Coral Reef Acrylic Painting Tutorial by Hot Pink Zebra Paper.
Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to be showing you a mermaid painting that is actually for my cousin's birthday, and some people have thought that this mermaid looks a lot like me. It actually is looking a lot like her. We just happen to look alike cousins, it happens. So that's the reason behind that. It's not actually looking like me, it looks like her, I promise. Like I said though, even though there's a nice little age gap, we're pretty similar. So that's what that is, but there's a lot of coral reef stuff in the bottom, there's some fish, there's a couple little silhouettes. I love ocean stuff. I have painted things that have been ocean themes so many times in the past. I've never done anything like that, too much at least, on this channel. So I think everything that I've done that was ocean themed was actually before I created the channel. So this is something new for the channel, but something I do a lot of. So I hope you guys like it, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future art as well.
So I'm going to begin on the background that's above the waterline, and I'm going to create a very soft gradient from a medium blue to a slightly lighter blue. So it's going to be lighter blue near the water. So I just laid down some blue and then began blending some white into it. And then just take your brush and go both directions, vertically and horizontally, just to blend the colors together really smooth. So then in the water, so below the water line, I'm going to start with an aqua color at the water and then kind of fade it to the same medium blue. And then from the blue, you're going to want to start adding the sand, so then you're going to blend that into tan. Just like that. To start her rocks, I just added a layer of a charcoal color paint. As I was doing that, I slowly blended in some white and a little bit of black to add the shadows. And I did add another rock that's kind of in the front of that big one. Just like that. Very soft shadows, nothing too detailed or crazy at this point. And then with a stippling motion and a whole bunch of colors, greens, blues, browns, whites, blacks, charcoals, I added some texture to the rock. Now you don't have to add too much detail to the rocks because they're pretty much going to get covered up with anemones and coral and sea plants and all sorts of things. So it just needs to be a little bit, just so that whatever does show through doesn't look so flat. And then I'm going to be adding 3 more rocks, 2 that are a little bit closer, like in the midground, and then one that's in the background. The one that's in the background, you want that one to have a little bit more of that blue color to it, so it looks like it has more water in front of it. Now to start my mermaid, I began with a layer of white paint over all of her skin areas, so face, chest, arms, midriff. And then I'm going to take, and I used a creamy peachy color, and then brown and white to add her features. So I started with her face and kind of worked my way down onto her neck, and then I'm going to start adding all the details to her chest. Now this mermaid I wouldn't say is like a super realistic or hyper realistic mermaid version of a human. It's kind of a fantasy realism sort of thing. So it's not, I didn't add too many details. I didn't overdo it, go crazy with it. I want it to be kind of simple and cute. It's for a 9-year-old birthday party for my cousin, and so I wanted to keep it, I knew it'd be in her fun mermaid themed room, so I wanted to keep it very, very simple. And then when you're working on her tail, I blended that into her torso. Usually when you see mermaids, and her tail is aqua, blue, and green. Usually when you see mermaids, their tail either has an abrupt like start and stop point, and then there's usually like a frill or something there, like a border, or they just slowly blend. I've always liked the ones that blend from skin to scales way better. So that's the way I decided to go with it. Then for her seashells, I wanted to keep them kind of more of a natural tone, so I kept them on like the beige color with just hints of orange and pink in them. And then for her hair, my cousin is definitely blonde, so I started out with a very pale yellow type color and filled in the hair, and then I added some brown in the shadows. I also took some yellow and added a couple little streaks that were a little bit more vivid in the yellow department. I didn't add too much of that, but just like a little bit, just a hint of those more yellow colors in there. And then I also, later on, I did add some gold highlights in her hair with a metallic gold paint. Now I'm going to be adding all the details to her face, starting with her eyes. So I'm going to be doing her eyes starting with white, then adding the green in them, black for her pupils, then adding some eyelashes, and then some eyebrows with brown. And then adding a little bit more of a shadow under her nose, and adding her nostrils, adding her lips with pink, the same pink that is in her shells, just like that. And then I also painted her nails with purple. So now I'm going to be doing with metallic gold paint. This paint is wonderful. If you guys ever have a chance to pick up some metallic paints, definitely go for it, because especially in this style of painting, there's so much fun to add those little flecks of shine in them. So I did all of her scales with metallic gold. I thought that added such a nice reflective quality that definitely felt fish-like. Then I also, like I said, added a couple of those little streaks in her hair, and then in the ends of her tail, in her tail fins as well. So then I'm just going to take and add a little bit of a shadow under her for the underside of her tail, and then a little highlight with white. And then I went through and I added just the detail of the line, the water line, and a couple little bubbles. I did a very simple waterline, just one stripe of white. Now usually when I do a waterline, I go through and I add lots of shadows, lots of bubbles, lots of dimension, but there's so much happening with this painting, so much happening under the sea, that I wanted to keep the waterline simple and kind of unintrusive, so I just left it with a simple white line. So now this is kind of the fun part, at least for me. This is the part that I always love doing. Like I said in the intro, I have done so many different coral reefs and coral things that it's kind of one of those second nature things. It's so funny though that I've never done anything like that on this channel before, but I just love doing this, so I was really looking forward to painting all of these coral things. Part of the reason why to me it's so enjoyable is because there's very few requirements, I suppose you could say, for painting a coral reef. There's no specific colors you have to use. There's no exact shapes that you need to follow. There's really no rules that you need to go with. You can just keep adding things and switching up colors. Now, of course, there are colors that things do occur naturally, and if you want, you can follow them. Like I said before, this isn't necessarily a hyper-realism style painting. It's not meant to be. So I kind of went with whatever color that I felt like. I had all kinds of paint all lined up, and I just grabbed whatever color sort of struck me at the moment. And the other thing that you can do when you're doing this, because you don't want to, even though I said that shapes there's not many rules with them, there's still things you don't want to paint corals that do look like coral. So if you just go and you Google coral, or you Google anemone, or you Google reef, there are so many images. And if you go with, I know in the video that I made about a year ago on how I plan my paintings, I say that I go to a website called Pixabay. I love that website. If you ever need any reference photos that are 100% guaranteed to be copyright free, definitely go there. There's so many images, but I put in different things because you never know what you're going to get with different searches. So I put in coral, and then I put in reef, and then you put in anemone, and you get these different things, and you can just take a picture and then you can base that for some of your corals, and then switch it up, go with something else. So now I'm going to be adding some sea plants. So the reason that I started with things that were a little bit heftier, I suppose you could say, like those tube corals and the anemones, and then I switched to things that are a little bit frillier, like these plants and the fans, is because when you start overlapping them, you want the things that are hardier to be behind them, because they're easier if you do want to put something that's behind it that, as you're going up, you can easily add things behind it. But if you're trying to fit something behind one of these frilly little plants and then paint between all the little pieces, it would be much more difficult. So add these thinner things later on. Now I didn't entirely follow that, as I am now adding some more of those tube corals. Those are my favorite thing ever to paint. I think I absolutely adore painting tube corals the most. And even just for fun, if you just go through, they're fun to just draw because the shadows are so simple. It's such a kind of a back to basics thing, because it's just those nice pure cylinders. I don't know, I'm probably a lunatic, but I enjoy it. So then after I have all of my coral refilled in, I'm going to paint a silhouette of a mermaid in the background. So I'm going to be using a dark sort of military gray blue for the base of it, and then highlight it with some of that same medium blue I used all throughout the background, and a little bit of white just to give it, that little sense of shape. And then I'm going to be adding some more fish around her, or not more fish, but a couple fish around her using the same colors. And then that rock that I said is in the background that I told you to make a little bit more blue before, follow through with that when you're painting the corals and the anemones and everything on it. So keep that everything blue tone on that rock, that as you can see. So now with white paint, I went through and I'm just going to be adding all of the outlines and the base shapes for my fish. The reason I added the white beneath the color is because you want to make sure that they have a solid look. They don't look like they're partially translucent and you can see all the things happening behind them. So if you add that layer of white on top or underneath them to begin with, you know that all of your colors on top of them is going to be really pure and very vivid. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to be filling in all my fish. I've got all kinds of fish here. This is the same thing like with the corals and the anemones. I put tropical fish into Pixabay, I put fish into Pixabay, and even when you put in reef and coral, you're going to get fish. And that way you know you're getting fish that would be with these corals and these anemones and these plants, because you found them together, that somebody took a picture of when they were in a coral reef somewhere. So definitely use Pixabay. It's the best website ever, unless you, of course, have the opportunity to have all these pictures taken yourself. I know that I'm working on building a photo library that is just photos that I've taken. The great thing about taking your own photos is that you have perspectives that maybe you would need for art purposes that somebody wouldn't take for a photo you know, for photo purposes, because maybe they don't look the best for that. Like, I have a whole section of fur photos on my computer, just different fur that I've taken. I've labeled it, you know, there's, I don't know, cat fur, dog fur, giraffe fur, all kinds of fur, because you never know when you need fur. But you're not going to find good photos of, detailed photos of fur too much on the internet. And then I also added a seagull that was right in her sight line. So that is it for this mermaid painting. Like I said, it's for my cousin. She loved it. Actually went, I had never seen her room before, and it matched perfectly, so I was pretty happy about that. So I hope you guys like it, and don't forget to check out my Facebook and Instagram for more of my art. I post more stuff on there than I do on YouTube, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!